Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Getting Started webinar. My name is Nick, and I will be doing the presentation with you today. Just like all of our webinars, everybody will be on mute, but if you do happen to have any questions at any point during our class, please feel free to go ahead and type that into the questions and answers section in the Zoom panel. And at the end of the class, I will go through and answer any questions that may have come up. Also, at the end of the class, I will be sending out an email that's going to contain a document that covers everything that we're going to be talking about in today's class. Should you happen to have any questions after our class while going over the document, you can reach out to our support department through either phone or email, and they will be happy to help you out with any questions. So again, today's class is on getting started with Envisioneer, and my name is Nick. So in today's class, we're going to be going through some detailed information about drawing and editing walls in the Envisioneer program. We're going to be taking a look at how to get ready to draw in Envisioneer, and then we're also going to be looking at how to draw walls in Envisioneer. So let's first talk about getting ready to draw. So Envisioneer offers many options for customizing your interface in the way that you draw. There are also settings that are specific to the current project and that will determine how your model will be built. Before drawing walls, you should select the precision you want for your measurements. You should set up your building location so that each element you insert is placed at the correct elevation within your model. There are also several drawing aids available that help to control your cursor behavior and the way in which the elements are inserted and drawn, such as your grid, your object snap, ortho, and collision. Let's first talk about building locations. So I'm going to start a brand new drawing. I'm going to use a blank template, and I'm going to say create. The most important model related settings are going to be your building locations. Each building location represents a specific level or story in your design, such as your foundation or your ground floor. When you insert an element, it is inserted on the current building location. The building location settings determine the height at which the element is inserted and the height of the walls on that specific level. So if we go up to, and if you like to use the menu option, you can select settings and then building locations. Or if you like to use the buttons, located in the lower left-hand corner is this little button of a house. That is the building locations button. Simply click on that and the building locations dialog will appear. Now, the building locations dialog is broken up into different sections. Now, the first two columns are going to be, your alphanumeric editing fields. So you can select either a numbering sequence that you want to use, be it 1, 2, 3, 4 or 0, 0, 1, whatever the numbering convention you want to take advantage of, you can type it into here. Now you can add up to 999 different locations in Envisioneer. The same is true for the naming convention. It is just an alphanumeric edit box. So you can actually click in it, type in the naming convention that you want for your building locations. By default, based on the template that I've selected, it is naming them foundation, ground floor, second floor. You can change it so that it's foundation, first floor, second floor if you wanted to. You can just go in here and type in first floor, second floor. The green arrow or the green check mark just indicates that you are on that current location. So wherever that green arrow is, or sorry, that green check mark is, that's just indicating that that is the location you're currently working on. And if you look in the lower left-hand corner, you can see ground floor is in the drop-down box. That's because we have the green check mark here. If we move the check mark, the name will show up in that box. So you can very easily tell which location you're working on. I'm going to click on the edit location because I like to have a graphical representation when I am describing the building locations dialog, because the next boxes that we're going to be working with are referring to this diagram. So in the template that we selected, and I'm just going to click cancel here and click on the correct location. There we go. And then click edit again. So we are now on the first floor location. Now the floor level is going to be calculated from the top of your terrain to the top of your framed floor. So in Envisioneer, terrain is always 0. So that is going to be our 0 mark. Now, to get to the top of our framed floor, we need a couple of factors to help us determine that. If we look at our foundation, we can see that the foundation wall height is set to 8 feet. We can also see that it is only sitting a negative 7 foot 6 inches below grade. That tells me that 6 inches of that wall is now exposed. So I have 6 inches of foundation wall from the top of my terrain to the top of my foundation wall. I then need to have a floor container added in. So what is the thickness of my floor going to be in this design? So if I'm building on top of a foundation wall, I'm going to need a sill plate, and then I'm going to need the floor thickness for the floor cavity I am drawing with. So in this case, we are looking at a floor thickness of a 2x10 with a 3/4 inch sheathing, and then we also have our sill plate. So all of those added together is going to give us our 1 foot 5.5 inches. And that's where that value comes from. Now, everything else is now going to be measured off of the top of your frame floor. So my head heights, my ceiling heights to the underside of ceiling, and my wall heights to top of wall are again measured from top of framed floor. So 6'8", 8 feet, and 8 foot 1 1/8 are the values that we are using. When you are working with your building locations dialog, whatever the majority of your options are for that location, you should put that value in here. What I mean by that is if the majority of your walls are 8 foot 1 1/8, then your ceilings are going to be 8 foot and your head heights are going to be 6'8". But if you have 2 or 3 walls that are going to be a little bit taller, it is much easier to adjust those 2 walls than to adjust all the walls in your design. So draw everything at that height, the 8 foot 1 1/8, and then you can select the individual walls and adjust their properties. The last option that we see in here is our framing options. So I'm going to cancel out of here and I'm going to click on framing options. Now, framing options determine how walls and intersections are going to be framed on each location. So in here, we can control what our load-bearing span table is going to use. So if I have a load-bearing wall added in and I put an opening into that wall, what type of header configuration do I want to use? And when I select that, I can double click and it will bring up a wall span table library. And from within here, I have a couple of different choices and I can choose whichever option that I want. I'm going to click on the 3-ply span table and I'm just going to double click on it. And this will bring up the wall framing span table option. So what we're seeing here is a layout of what the span is and then what the header should be for that span. So we're saying for any opening up to 5 feet, we are going to use a 3-ply 2x6 header. For any opening that is larger than 5 feet, but up to 8 feet, we are going to use a 3-ply 2x8 header, and so on in that list. You can add to this list, you can remove elements from this list. This is just a default that we send with. Each of these configurations is also something that you can modify and edit. So in here, when I take a look at the 3-ply 2x6 header, and I just open up the properties on that, what we're going to see here is how this header is going to be configured for this opening. So in this particular design for this opening, we're going to have a jack stud and a king stud on each side. We're going to have an upper and a lower cripple region, and we're going to have a window sill that is going to sit, so a sill that's going to sit underneath our window. You can again add or edit this. Now the headers themselves are going to be actual members from the member library. Everything else is going to use the wall properties option. And what we mean by that is whatever wall you add in, if it's going to be a 2x4 or a 2x6 wall, we want to use that member to frame our walls. So all of my studs are going to use a 2x4 or a 2x6, depending on, again, the wall size that we choose. But when we do our headers, we know we want it to be a 2x6 header because that's what we're highlighting here is a 2x6 header. So we're just going to essentially choose that for us automatically. We're going to say cancel on there, cancel on there, and cancel on there, and cancel there, because I don't want to make any changes to this. The same is going to be true for your non-load bearing walls. So you can go in and you can set up a non-load bearing wall configuration. So that way maybe you just have a flat 2x6 running for a non-framed, or sorry, for a non-load bearing wall itself. So you can again customize your configurations to match your framing practices. The intersection lookup table is not something that you can edit in this dialog. It is going to reference that table, and that table is going to take a look at how walls are actually connected. So if I have two walls coming in at a 90-degree angle, it's going to try and create a 3-stud energy corner or a 4-stud corner in that configuration. If I have 3 walls coming together, I'm creating a T intersection. If I have 4 walls coming together, I'm creating an X intersection. So it just refers to that lookup table and it applies the correct framing for that intersection. Now you can create your own lookup table in a drawing and have that be something that you would look up to by selecting it from here. Because when you select this option, again, you're going to have different configurations that you can choose from. And then we have our infill configuration. Now this is how our walls are actually going to be framed out. So we want to make sure that this is again set up correctly. So we want to make sure if we are drawing our walls, we want them to be at 16 inches on center with a double top plate. If it is a wall that needs blocking, then we're going to include blocking. If it is not a wall that needs blocking, then we can just simply say, I want it to be a 16-inch on center double top plate. Depending on the construction practice you're working with, you may need to include a pressure treated bottom plate. And again, this falls into the idea that I may be drawing with a 2x4 wall or a 2x6 wall. So I will have both options available to me. So that way, if I am drawing with a 2x4 wall, I use the 2x4 pressure treated bottom plate. If I'm drawing with a 2x6 wall, I would use the 2x6 pressure treated bottom plate. And then we're just going to simply say, okay. Again, whatever the majority of your wall framing is going to be in your design, you would set that up here. There are going to be instances where you may have one opening that needs to be a little bit larger, or you're going to be carrying a little bit more load than what's being described. So you can manually select that opening and adjust the framing afterwards. But for the majority of your walls, you want to make sure this is set up so that it uses this information for every wall that's added in. I'm just going to say okay because I did change it to be a different plate, and we're just going to say okay. And then we're going to say okay to our building locations. So next we're going to go in and we're going to adjust our drawing aids. So we're going to go up to settings and we're going to select underneath our program settings, we're going to select drawing aids. Now, cancel that, sorry, my mistake. Under settings, document settings, drawing aids, we can now see we have different controls. So when you're adjusting your drawing aids underneath your document settings, we are giving you the ability to control the drawing area in Envisioneer. So these controls here, be it your grid, your object snap, your ortho, your angle, your grid snap, and your snap tracking, are controls that help you while drawing out your model. Now, the snap track option helps you draw objects at specific angles or positions relative to other objects. When snap tracking is turned on, a temporary alignment path will appear that is based on the object's snap points, such as the end point or the midpoint of an object. Very handy for when you're trying to line things up. I typically use this for drawing walls, or if I'm trying to place a column that I know it needs to be centered on a wall, but offset from the wall a set distance, I will use the snap track feature. And it is usually always on for me when I'm drawing. Now, snap track can be enabled or disabled. using the document settings drawing aids. It can also be enabled or disabled by selecting in the lower right in the commander. Anything that is highlighted in black is active. Anything that is grayed out is turned off. You can also turn these on and off by using your function keys on your keyboard. So snap tracking is going to be controlled with the F3 button on your keyboard. Grid snap will allow you to snap your pointer to the invisible grid when inserting elements. So in the background, you can see I have a grid turned on. With grid snap enabled, I would be able to snap to the intersections of each of these points. Again, you can enable grid snap by turning it on by pressing F4, or again, by just simply clicking on the button in the commander in the lower right. Then we have object snap. Now, object snap is a command that allows you to snap elements that are currently inserted to existing elements in your drawing. You would pretty much always have object snap turned on, but you can turn it on or off, and you can do that by pressing F5 or again by selecting it in the lower right corner. Now, angle snap and ortho, I'm going to talk about these two at the same time because they do work in conjunction with each other. Now, ortho will only allow you to draw in 90-degree movements. So it's going to keep everything nice and straight and true. So if you know you're going to be designing a house that has no angled walls, then you're going to want to make sure ortho is enabled. You can enable ortho by pressing F8 on your keyboard, or again by selecting it in the lower right-hand corner. Now, if you are going to be drawing with angled walls, then you're going to want to make sure you have angle snap enabled. And you can enable angle snap by pressing F6 or again selecting it in the right-hand corner. Angle snap and ortho cannot be on at the same time. So if I select one, the other will automatically be turned off. So again, if you know you're going to be drawing at set angles, then you're going to want to make sure angle snap is enabled. And then you can specify the exact angle that you want to adjust. So if it's going to be every 15 degrees, every 30 degrees, every 45 degrees, you can set that value in here. So that way, whenever you draw in your angled wall, it's going to snap to the correct angle. I'm going to set mine back to ortho. And then we're going to look at grid. So again, grid is going to be a feature that is turned on by default depending on the template you've selected. And you can have it enabled by pressing F7 on your keyboard, or again, disabling it in the lower right corner. It is just a guide to help you while drawing out your design. And lastly, we have collision. Now, collision isn't going to be visible here. You're going to need to go to the Building Aids tab to see collision. Now, collision is important because it prevents objects from being inserted where they should not be. So as an example, if I have walls drawn in and I want to place my cabinets up against the wall, collision will automatically flip the cabinets around so that the back of the cabinet snaps to the wall. This collision control works in conjunction with what we call a behavior tab. And a behavior tab is going to be under the properties of an object. When a behavior is assigned, so be it the back, the front, the right, the top, the bottom, or the left, it will snap that edge to whatever it is you're moving it close to. Now, collision is an excellent tool for when you want to place things that you don't want to interfere with other objects. There are going to be instances where collision will not allow you to place something where you want it to go. An excellent example of this is stairs and bathtubs. If you are trying to insert a stair into a tight opening, so in between two walls, you will probably need to turn collision off, place the stair, and then turn collision back on. Same with a bathtub. If you are inserting a bathtub that is a 5-foot tub and it's going to be inserted between two walls that are exactly 5 feet apart, collision will not allow you to place it in there because it sees it as a conflict. So you would again need to turn collision off, move the tub into place, rotate it if needed, and then turn collision back on. Collision can be turned on and off again by pressing F9 on your keyboard or by pressing in the lower right-hand corner the collision button. So we're now going to go in and we're going to start to draw in some walls. So I'm just going to say apply and then okay. So there are different ways to create walls in Envisioneer depending on your design style. You can draw them to exact dimensions, or you can simply pick points while watching the on-screen dimensions. You can also copy existing walls to create new ones. Whether your design style is highly precise or more free-form, Envisioneer is a versatile tool that will work with you. So let's draw some walls to exact dimensions. So when you know the exact dimensions that you want your perimeter walls to have, you can use the Walls by Baseline tool. This option allows you to type in a precise length for each wall. As you draw your wall segments, a self-closing diagram is going to be formed. When you have finished specifying your wall lengths, you are then prompted to specify an offset method for the walls relative to the baseline that you have just drawn. You can offset them from the outer face of the veneer, from the outer face of the wall core or stud, or from the inner face of the wall. So let's go up and select the Walls by Baseline option. If you like to use the menus, you're going to select Insert, Walls, and you're going to select Walls by Baseline. If you like to use the buttons under the Building tab, you're going to see the Walls button. Beside it is a little arrow, which is a drop-down menu. Select that, and then you can select Walls by Baseline. In the catalog on the right-hand side, we're going to select the 2x6 brick veneer wall under the masonry folder. So I'm just going to close some of these folders. And under masonry, I'm going to grab 2x6 brick veneer wall. I'm going to move my mouse into the lower left-hand part of my screen, and I'm going to left-click once to start my first point. When I do that, I'm going to see a line show up on my screen, and I'm just moving my cursor. I'm not holding the left mouse button down. I've selected once by clicking the left mouse button. I've specified that point, and now I can move my cursor in the direction that I want my wall to go. So if I want my wall to go up, I move my mouse up. That is considered the 90-degree direction. To the left is 180, down is 270, and to the right is 0. I want my mouse going in the 0 direction, so to the right, and then I can start to type in. So if you look at the commander, the distance box is highlighted in blue. That lets you know that that is the currently active dialog, and I can simply type in what I want. I want this wall to be 25 feet. Make sure you add the foot sign in. Envisioneer assumes inches if nothing is if nothing is added. So make sure you add your foot sign in, and then simply press enter on your keyboard. That first wall is now added in. I'm going to move my mouse upwards, and I want you to take notice that the line is referencing back to the first point. So right now it's creating a triangle. You haven't done anything wrong. Again, it is a self-enclosed polyline. So we're now defining our second wall, which is going to be highlighted by that line running vertical right now. And we're just going to simply make sure our mouse is going up. We're going to type in 10 feet, and we're going to hit enter. You can now see we've added in a new segment of wall. So we're going to continue going around our design, and now we're going to move again to the right in the 0-degree direction. We're going to type in 5 feet, enter, and we're going to move our mouse upwards. We're going to type in 20 feet, enter, and then we're going to move our mouse to the left. So this is going to be going in the 180-degree direction. Now, I could type in a distance of 30 feet, which would be the distance that we would require for this, because the first wall was 25 feet and the second wall was 5 feet, so that should be 30 feet. But for more complex designs, you may not know what that number is right offhand. So this is where snap tracking comes in. So I have snap tracking enabled. I can see it on in my commander. So all I have to do is basically move my mouse down to that point. I'm not left clicking, I'm just moving my mouse down there, and I can see it's found the snap edge or the snap end. And as soon as I move my mouse up, I can see a dotted line being displayed. That dotted line is the snap track guideline. And you can see it's automatically set it to 30 feet. All I have to do is press enter, and it's now added in that point. I can now simply right-click to bring up my context menu. Now, at any point while drawing, if I've made a mistake, I can simply right-click and I can select the step back option. This will allow me to step back all the way to the very first point that I added in. If I want to cancel the command, I can again just simply right-click and select cancel. But once you're finished, you're going to right-click and you're going to select finish. This will bring up the walls by baseline dialog box. And in this dialog box, it's essentially asking you the lines that we just drew, what were they representing? Was it representing the outer face of the veneer, the outer face of the wall core or stud, or the inner face of the wall core or stud? In our case, we're going to say the outer face of veneer. Once you've defined your boundary, do you want to offset it? Do we want to offset this any kind of a distance in or out from the line that we've added in? In this case, no, we don't want to do that. So I'm going to make sure that mine is set to outer face of veneer, and I'm just going to say 0, and I'm going to say OK. That now adds in my exterior walls. If I select a wall, it's going to show me the dimensions that we added in. So I said 25 feet from there to there, and that's what it's showing me. So 25, 10, 5, this should be 20, and that should be 30. So now we're going to be drawing walls with the point and click method. If you prefer a more free-form design approach, or if you want to draw your interior walls, you're going to use the Walls tool. Once you've selected this tool, all you have to do is point and click with your mouse to define the start and the end point of each wall. On-screen dimensions will display the lengths of the walls as you draw them, and you still have the option of using the commander to specify exact lengths and angles if necessary. Walls drawn with this tool are always going to be drawn on center. So again, we're going to go up, and again, if you like to use the menu, you're going to go to Insert, Walls, and you're going to select Walls. Or if you like to use buttons, underneath the Building tab, use the drop-down and select Walls. Again, just to reiterate, interior walls will always be drawn using the Walls command. You will never use walls by baseline for your interior walls. So now that we've defined that we want to be using walls for our interior walls, we now just need to select our interior wall. So I'm going to go to the interior frame partitions. I'm just going to grab a 2x6 interior wall, and then I'm just going to bring my mouse into my drawing area. As soon as I do that, I can see my cursor looks like a wall, but as soon as I get close to a corner or to the center of a wall, it's going to snap to a point for me. And I actually want to snap to this point right here. So I'm going to bring my cursor right to that corner, and I'm going to left click once to snap it into place. Now I'm not holding my mouse button down. I've left clicked once, and now I'm moving my mouse in the direction that I want that wall to go. And I want this wall to extend all the way across to the left. And I'm just going to zoom in. And as soon as I get to the center of the core, I'm going to see a snap point. And that's where I want this wall to sit. Snapping to the center of a wall will ensure you get a nice, clean intersection. If you see lines in your intersections, then it's not a clean intersection, and you will probably need to clean it up. Our intersections look nice and clean, so that worked out perfect for us. So now we're going to be drawing some walls using the insertion offset option. So we're going to add in some walls. We're going to bring our mouse into our drawing area, and we're going to right click. When we right click, again, it's going to bring up a context menu. And in here, we have a couple of different commands. We have an insert by baseline, an insert, an insertion, enter an insertion offset, and an insert from base point. We're going to use the enter insertion offset option. This is going to bring up the enter insertion offset dialog where you can just simply type in the distance that you want. And I want this to be 6 feet. I'm then going to say OK. As soon as I say OK, I'm going to bring my mouse into my drawing area. And as soon as I do, it's going to show me a 6-foot dimension from either side, depending on which corner of your cursor it is close to. You can move your cursor to any wall and it will show you that it is 6 feet away from the corner of that wall. When you see the 6-foot dimension, you can simply left click to add it in and it will place it in for you. It does not matter where your cursor is, it's always going to find that 6-foot dimension. I'm going to snap my wall in right there, and then I'm going to move my mouse up and I'm going to snap it to the center of the wall above. Now we're going to be looking at creating walls by copying existing walls. So walls can be copied to create new walls in your design. You can click and drag the copy to a new position, or you can use the commander to specify a more precise distance and direction. So we're going to select a wall in our design, and then we're just going to simply right click, and we're going to select duplicate. Now there are two ways of using this duplicate command. So if I select duplicate, and if I move my mouse over, I usually always go to the center of the wall, so I grab the blue grip. If I do this, I can left click and hold. So right now my mouse button is still pressed. So I'm holding the mouse button down and I'm dragging this wall up. I'm looking at the commander and I'm able to gain information as to how far away it is. I'm not going to be very precise with this because I can't really do anything here. I'm just going to bring my mouse, I'm going to get it close to the height or the distance that I want, and then I'm going to let go. As soon as I let go, it creates a copy of that wall for me. Now, I can be more precise. I can select it, right click, duplicate, exactly the same steps, but instead of left clicking and holding, I'm going to left click once. Once I left click once, I've now got the wall attached to my cursor. And since it's attached to my cursor, I can now type in a distance. I'm going to say 10 feet, and I'm going to hit enter. That's going to move that wall 10 feet from center to center. So again, two different ways of duplicating a wall. The drag, so the click and drag and release option, or the click and type option is the two different ways of adding in a duplicate wall. Once a wall has been added in, you can look at the actual dimensions. So here we can see we have an 8'3" dimension and a 9'5.5" dimension. These dimensions are again going to be from face to face. Whatever wall or whatever the element is that you have selected, that is the object that's going to move the distance that you type in. So if I wanted this to be exactly 10 feet, I'm going to select this wall. I'm going to select that dimension and I'm going to type in 10 feet, enter. That will move that wall up for me that distance. Let's just edit, undo that. And I want to show you why this is important. So right now I can see that this is still showing me that 9'5.5", but I do want it to be 10 feet. So if I select this and I type in 10 feet, I will get the 10-foot dimension, but it's moving the wrong wall. So again, whatever the wall is that you have selected, that is the wall or the element that's going to move to accommodate that change. So again, we want to make sure this wall is selected, type in your 10 feet, and then click OK. So that covers everything that I wanted to show you in today's class. So I am going to go ahead and open up the questions and answers section. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and type those in, and I will do my best to answer those for you. While you are doing that, I'm just going to go over a quick review of what we've covered in today's class. So before starting a design, it is important to set up your building locations and prepare your drawing environment. Once that is done, you can begin drawing your walls and adding elements to your design. Just some points to remember. Before drawing walls, make sure you define your building locations. A number of different drawing aids are available to help you draw, insert, and edit elements easily and accurately. You're going to use the Walls by Baseline tool to create an exterior wall layout with precise dimensions. This is also an excellent tool if you're tracing over top of a PDF or a DWG file. You can use the Walls tool for free-form design and for the drawing of all of your interior walls. You can also use the Enter, Insertion, Offset and the Duplicate tools to accurately add walls to your model. I'm just going to check on the questions. I'm not seeing any questions up to this point, so I'm just going to pause here for just a moment to see if anybody is just finishing up typing in their questions. But like I mentioned at the beginning of the class, I am going to be sending out an email that is going to have a document attached to it. That document is going to be everything that we've talked about today. So if you want to go through the document, if you happen to have any questions while doing that, again, please don't hesitate. Contact our support department. We want you to be proficient with the software, so we're happy to help you guys out. Perfect. Well, there doesn't appear to be any questions, so I do want to thank everybody for attending today. I do look forward to speaking with you all again very soon. Thank you very much, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.